Welcome to Small Group Summaries with Scott. So what we did this past Sunday, once again, I want to do this for those of you that were unable to come to small groups for whatever reasons, but especially for those that are staying home because of the pandemic but still want to stay connected. Our theme this past week was life in an anxious world. So the question is, where is God when I feel anxious? And we're all going through anxiety right now, collectively as a country, if not personally with our own personal issues. We are under a blanket of anxiety. So we took a look at a couple verses. We took a look, first of all, at Mark chapter 6, verses 45 to 51. It says this: "Right then, Jesus made his disciples get into a boat and go ahead to the other side of the lake, towards Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After saying goodbye to them, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray. Evening came, and the boat was in the middle of the lake, but he was alone on the land. He saw his disciples struggling. They were trying to row forward, but the wind was blowing against them. Very early in the morning, he came to them, walking on the lake. He intended to pass them by. When they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost, and they screamed. Seeing him was terrifying to all of them. Just then he spoke to them. 'Be encouraged, it's me, don't be afraid.' He got into the boat, and the wind settled down. His disciples were so baffled, they were besides themselves." So what do you notice that's unusual about Jesus' words or actions? You might notice that he's walking on water, and that's a little weird. So think about this story as if you're hearing it for the first time. I mean, the disciples were rightfully freaked out. His words that he offered encouragement and calmness in a time of extreme anxiety. So some pretty interesting things that, Jesus he walked into the situation steady, and he also stops and gets in a wobbly boat. So he brings peace and calm to the situation. Jesus steps into the unsteady boat. There are many stories in the Bible where someone shows signs that they're feeling anxious. Can you name some of them? Can you come up with some? There's a lot of stories of anxiety within the Bible, and you might identify with some of the characters there. Mark 4:35 to 41 gives us another story that's very similar to the first story. It says this: "Later that day, when evening came, Jesus said to them, 'Let's cross over to the other side of the lake.' They left the crowd and took him in the boat just as he was. Other boats followed along. Gale force winds arose, and waves crashed against the boat so that the boat was swamped. But Jesus was in the rear of the boat, sleeping on a pillow. They woke him up and said, 'Teacher, don't you care that we're drowning?' He got up and gave orders to the wind, and he said to the lake, 'Silence, be still.' The wind settled down, and there was a great calm. Jesus asked them, 'Why are you frightened? Don't you have faith yet?' Overcome with awe, they said to each other, 'Who then is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him.'" So consider this. Jesus doesn't leave them alone in their anxiety. He joins them. He's with them. What do you notice about their response? I mean, isn't it something? Once again, Jesus is sleeping in a storm on a boat, which I think is kind of hard to do, but he must have been really tired. And then when they finally woke him, he was kind of bothered by the fact that they're all freaked out. And he speaks to the weather. How strange is that? And not even strange, the weather obeys him. So the disciples literally are probably freaked out and blown away by this, that even the wind and the waves obey him. So once again, Jesus is in the middle of their anxiety and brings peace and calm to it. So the question is, what's making your boat feel unsteady lately? Maybe it's school, sports, activities, maybe this pandemic we're in, friendships or relationships, or maybe something going on at home. We all feel anxious. So the question is, where is God at work in the midst of my anxiety? What might God or anxiety be trying to tell you about your schedule and the pressure that you're under? about times when I'm beyond my comfort zone. Maybe what it's trying to tell you, whether I'm eating or sleeping enough, or whether I'm putting myself in dangerous situations. Those can bring anxiety. So think about this, coping strategies. Everything we do to try and get rid of, reduce, or tolerate stress. There's good coping strategies and bad coping strategies. Bad coping strategies numb the situation, whether it's drugs or alcohol or bad relationships. But you want to have good strategies. So anxiety doesn't have to take us down a dangerous path. Instead, we can look up, look inside, and look around. And this is what I mean by that. Look up means that we look up and seek God's wisdom. And we talk with others who are walking in the faith. Then we look inside. We think and reflect on where God is at work inside of us. And then we look around. We take a good look at our own anxious world so that we can make peace and share it. So we want to look up, look inside, and look around. Those are the things that we want to learn to do. And we also want to learn about what our anxiety is trying to tell us. We can look about who we are, what situations make us feel unsteady, and what healthy coping strategies work for us. We can use our power to make changes when situations in our life cause us to feel tense. We can recognize where God is present and at work in our rocking boat, knowing God is with us. He doesn't abandon. I mean, it's interesting that Jesus, if I was Jesus, I would have just ran right by those guys and been like, I'll see you on the other side, buddies. But instead, he gets in the boat with them and calms the situation. And then also we need to practice listening to God so that we can experience peace and share that peace with others. So what I would encourage you to do as a family, if you weren't able to be in small groups, is to talk through some of this stuff. And grow your circle of people that can help you talk through some of your anxiety. That might be your parents, but I think you need to broaden that circle even more so that you have a small group leader, you have a youth pastor, but maybe a school counselor, and some other adults in your life, maybe grandparents or aunt and uncle. But broaden your circle of people that you can go to when you're feeling anxious, that you can at least have somebody to talk to and share what you're going through. And if you ask for it, that you can ask for their advice. I know a lot of times for me, when it comes to anxiety, it just helps to be able to talk to somebody. And if I'm brave enough to, if I trust them and believe that I'm speaking to a wise person, I'll ask them for their advice. There's nothing more annoying than getting advice when you're not asking for it. I'm not saying that. But just to have someone you can talk to. And then if you trust them, ask for their advice. And that can help in an anxious world. So I'm sure your parents are more than aware of the anxiety they're going through during this time. And they can share with you that this is a human experience. It doesn't disappear, but it just evolves in different forms at different stages of life. It's how you cope with it and how you handle it that can help. Holding it in can be very dangerous. Not sharing it can be very dangerous. So you need to have people around you that love you, that care about you, and will give you good advice. And people that you can just release that anxiety, and also releasing it to God and understanding that God is with you. He's in the boat with you. He cares about you. He loves you. And he wants to help you work through that anxiety and find peace through him. So that's what we covered in small groups this past Sunday. We missed you. If you're able to come, we'll have small groups this next coming Sunday. If you are hunkered down at home because of this pandemic, we will continue to let you know what we're covering. So we love you guys. We care about you. We miss you. And have a good week.